Good afternoon, friends. Welcome back. I hope everybody enjoyed their lunch today and is ready for math time. So let's get our presentation started. Today we're going to be learning about measurement. Look at all the different ways that you can measure. We can measure time, we can measure weight, we can measure length, we can measure how wide something is, how heavy something is. So let's get started with our presentation and go to our measurement song. Just have to wait. 3, 2, 1. You can measure how tall you are. The scale measures how heavy you are. Weight. Measurement. Thermometer. Measurement. How hot is it? Use a ruler. Use a scale. Use degrees. Read the seconds. Measurement. 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 You take your temperature at the doctor's. Minutes. Use a thermometer. Use a ruler. Use a scale. Use stopwatch. Read the inches. Read the pounds. Read the seconds. Measurement. Good job, friends. Measurement. And today's story is Carrie Measures Up. We're going to see what she's all about. We read about Carrie with the button book, I believe, when she spilled buttons all over the place. We're going to see what she's up to today. It says Carrie Measures Up by Linda Aber and illustrated by Joy Allen, and the publisher is Kane Press. And we know that the author writes the words and the illustrator draws the pictures and a publisher makes it into a book. So when her grandma asks Carrie to be her measuring spy, Carrie decides to knit grandma the biggest and longest surprise of all. See what happens. Spiffy is getting nose marks all over the window, but I don't mind. He's helping me watch for grandma. She's coming to visit for 2 whole weeks. Spiffy is a great lookout. He never blinks. Keep watching, Spiffy, I say. I try on some sweaters. I went to wear one Grandma made, but it's so hard to choose. Grandma's a knitter, and she takes her yarn and her needles wherever she goes. Everybody in my family has tons of things she's made, even Spiffy. I sure wish I could knit like Grandma does. She says she'll teach me someday, and I can't wait. Ruff, ruff, ruff. Spiffy barks. Grandma's here, I shout. I run downstairs and open the door. Well, hello, sweetie, Grandma says. She has a suitcase and naturally her big knitting bag. After all the hugs and hellos, Grandma settles down in her favorite chair. She calls it her sit and knit chair. Ta-da, she says. Then she gives me a purple purse, a dress for my favorite doll, and a funny floppy hat. Everything is fantastic, I tell her. Grandma's knitting needles are already clicking away. Can you give me a job to do? I ask. I like to help Grandma. You can be my measuring spy, she says. You mean sneak around and measure when nobody's looking? I ask. Right, says Grandma. That way, when my presents will be real surprises. She hands me a big blue measuring tape. You'll need this. I unroll the tape. It's long, 72 inches. I say, can I start measuring now? Before Grandma can answer, Dad yells, has anyone seen my slipper? Spiffy races off with Dad's slipper. Oh no, Grandma says, put slippers for Dad at the top of the knit list. Here comes the measuring spy. I peek into the den. Perfect. Dad's reading. I crawl over and measure. 11.5 inches. Dad's feet are just 1/2 inch less than 1 foot. That means his foot is less than a foot. Being Grandma's measuring spy is fun, but when nobody's looking, I measure everything on Grandma's list. I even measure Spiffy for paw warmers. I measure my baby brother for tiny baby mittens. I measure Mom's laptop for a new carrying case. I measure the door knockers. Grandma wants to make door knock covers for quieter knocks. That's silly. How are you going to hear a quiet knock? Then I kind of get carried away and I measure everything in sight. I'm a measuring maniac. Mom would love a TV cover, a bowling ball bag for Dad, a hammock would be nice. How about curtains for the birdhouse? Whoa, Grandma finally says, my knitting will never keep up with all your measuring. It's time for you to learn to knit. At last. I'm so excited I can hardly talk. Let's head over to the yarn barn, Grandma says. What a great place. It's jam-packed with cool knitting stuff. By the time we leave, I have my own knitting bag, needles, and balls of yarn, cherry red, sunburst yellow, and poppin' purple. At home, Grandma shows me 2 knitting stitches, knit and purl. It looks easy, but it isn't easy. I keep trying, and little by little, my knitting gets better. Grandma always says that knitting helps her think. She's right. I get a great idea. Grandma knits for everyone but herself, I said to Spiffy. So I'm going to knit a scarf for Grandma. Her birthday is only 1 week away. Of course, I have to follow Grandma's rule, measure first, knit later. I'll wait for Grandma to take a nap. Soon she'll close her eyes. Her knitting drops into her lap. She's asleep. I drape the tape around Grandma's neck, just the way a scarf goes. It looks too short. I unroll the tape a little more. 45 inches seems pretty good, I whisper to Spiffy. I take out some cherry red yarn and I decide to make the scarf 8 inches wide. Then I roll out the tape measure to 45 inches just to see how much I have to do. Gee, I think, that's a lot of knitting. I knit for what seems like a long time. Then I measure. Only 2 inches. I work harder. 4 inches. And harder. 7 inches. No more measuring, I decide. I'll just knit and knit. I knit while I watch TV. I knit while I watch the baby. I knit on the school bus. I even knit when Mom takes a splinter out of my big toe. It's the day before Grandma's birthday. My fingers are very tired and I can't knit anymore. I decide I better measure the scarf. Wow, it's longer than the tape measure. Oh well, better too long than too short. Then it hits me. How do I end the scarf? The only one thing Grandma didn't teach me. Finally, I put the scarf and needles and all into a big box and I wrap it up and tie it with a tape measure. The big day is here. Happy birthday, Grandma, I say. Grandma opens the box and she takes the scarf out and out and out. It's beautiful and so long. It's the longest scarf I've ever seen, she says. And oh my, the knitting needles are still in the end. I didn't know how to finish, I explained. Grandma shows me what to do. All done, she says. It's a scarf like no other scarf in the world. It's a scarf made for two. Let's go for a walk. I want to show it off. Grandma throws the scarf around her neck and around mine. I guess we'd better take a very long walk, to say, to show off this very, very, very long scarf. And then here we go. Each piece of knitting yarn is a different length. The red piece is about 1 inch. The blue piece is 1.5 inches, and the yellow piece is 3.5 inches. And also remember that 12 inches equal 1 foot, and 3 feet equal 1 yard. And then here are some activities that you guys can do. You can use a measuring tape or a ruler to discuss the following questions. How long is the space between the left edge of the ruler and the number 1? That would be 1 inch. Use a chart on page 32 to practice measuring. How long is the piece of red yarn, blue yarn, and yellow yarn? And then it also says, encourage your child to use a tape measure to find the length of his or her arm, her leg, her hand, her foot, her finger. Compare the lengths of objects that can be laid side by side. Go on a search together to find long things to compare. Kitchen utensils, writing instruments, tools. Point out how important it is to line up the objects so that they both are at the same place. And make a squiggly pictures. You will need some yarn, scissors, glue, and sheets of construction paper. With your child, cut yarn into 2, 3, and 4-inch pieces. Use the ruler on page 32 as a guide. Have your child make funny squiggly pictures by gluing the yarn on the paper. Those are some activities to give you an idea. Let's see how many points we earned. We earned 355 points for reading for 9 minutes. Good job, friends. And here is an activity that you can do. We can measure the scissors and the pie and the marker and the spider and the dragonfly. But our Google Classroom today is to go on a hunt around your house and measure objects at home. But don't use measuring tools. Use non-standard things like crayons or beans. Beans are a good thing to measure with. So you could take and then see how many crayons long is your paper, or how many beans long is your paper, or how many forks long is your paper. And there's our girls. And I'm going to exit out of here. And show you how we can measure with our beans. I'm trying to close this up so it doesn't make a mess and I get beans everywhere. It doesn't want to close. All right, so I have a marker here, and we can measure by lining the beans up and see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The marker is about 10 beans long. And we also have this magnifying glass. Let's see how long that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we know that the marker is about 10 beans long and the magnifying glass is about 14 beans long. So we know the magnifying glass is 4 beans longer than 10. And that's a good activity to do. I think everybody has beans at home, so you can get different objects to measure. So that's the end of our math lesson today. I hope everybody has fun with the assignment. I know that I did, counting the beans. And I look forward to all the pictures. Check back tomorrow for our last virtual classroom recording. I'll see you guys later. Bye.